applied for a submission to the Drinking Water Source Water Protection Plan that the state put out. We were accepted to that plan, I believe, in June of 2021. Then in July 21, we started meeting. So it's taken that long to get the plan approved, but we've just recently had it approved by the town. So I'll go through a little bit of what we did and how we got there. So this is what will be covered today. I'll go through a little bit of the framework of the state provided us with the ECWQC framework, what our major findings were, what our recommended actions were, and what the next steps are going to be to implement what we've came across. Okay, a little background information. The town of Holland has a water district that has been in service since the 1930s. We serve about 1,500 customers and 446 service connections. The system is made up of 3 different wells. Actually, wells 1 and 2 were the first 2 installed in the 1930s, and actually one of the 2 wells are only in production at one time. Usually it's well 1. The other one is used for backup and for maintenance or when the other well's down. And then in 2010, we installed a 3rd well to increase our capacity and to because the wells were aging and such. And we just recently got that one up and running because we've had issues with iron and magnesium and other problems with there. So, but that has recently been put into service to provide extra capacity for the town. The hydraulic setting was a basal sand and gravel aquifer. Fairly confined. It's semi-confined. I guess we're finding more by a more dense layer above it. 2 wells are approximately 100 feet deep. So that's where our source comes from, and I'll give you a little more information as we go through these slides. As I said, the system was created in the 1930s. In the early 20th century, there was regulations regarding waste disposal, fluoride setbacks, annual watershed inspections, and of course the DOH were added. In 2004, most everyone went through a source water assessment program. That's why this is called the SP2. The key issues there were addressed to the risk of contaminants from facilities near the actual wells themselves. In 2018, the town of Holland updated the comprehensive plan, and then 2022, we finished this program, which we started in 2021. A little overview of what the just a little overview of what we're looking at as far as the aquifer. At the top of the screen is the new well at the Fleeting Drive location. A little bit farther down, you can see the original wells 1 and 2. And what you're seeing here is the delineation of the aquifer itself, and the dotted line to the bottom is the source water. It's dotted because it's not really well defined, and we're not really sure the extent of it. Most of this information, we were lucky, came from a USGS report that was put out in 1997 for 3 different aquifers in Erie County. The town of Collins, town of Alden, and the town of Holland. So we were kind of lucky to have a lot of geologic information available to us. But what is still not known is exactly the extent of that area to the south and how much of that area is being fed from the moraines to the east and south. A little bit about the framework itself. This is the information you can get from it. It's still considered a draft working document because the state wants feedback from the towns and participants on it so they can make improvements before they make a final plan. So at this point, it's still considered a working draft. But if you find out there's the website information, you can find out information more about the document. Some key components of the framework. One of the first steps is to form a stakeholder group. That's done by inviting people to join the group by email, or actually I went around in town with my wife and canvassed the businesses and hand out flyers and actually invited them to attend, to participate. So, and then the second section is to do a source of water assessment that we got going with the meetings. The state assigned two, well, mostly one consulting firm. It was Barton and Winkler, that's spelled, out of Syracuse, and Ecologic that helped us develop the plan and organize the meetings and worked us through the framework, and that helped tremendously. Provided a lot of technical help along the way and kept things on track. So after the group was formed, we started doing assessment of the water systems and provided a lot of information on that, mapping, and then started looking at the potential contaminant source inventory. And the consulting firms did a lot of that work. They went to the state's spill reports and brought up on the different possible sources of contaminants. The next step was to come up with some protection and implementation strategies, and then the final step is to actually implement them and to keep things, keep the plan moving forward and maintained. The stakeholder group that we ended up organizing included members from the town of Holland, the Erie County Department of Health, other sections of Erie County, like Joanna participated, Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper, Western New York Land Conservancy, Waste Management Landfill in Sardinia, which is at pretty much the southern border of where Aquifer could be coming from. They were actually pretty active participants, and they provided some technical information for us from what they had, so that helped out some. Draper Trucking, who was one of the bigger businesses in town, that actually one of the more likely to be a cause of contaminant sources. And then LUBA and, as I said, Erie County Department of Environmental Planning all participated. And we also had some couple of actually residents in the town that participated besides town officials. Yeah, I think Land Conservancy. Okay, so this is the vision that we came up with. The town of Holland has identified and implemented effective strategies designed to improve and protect the drinking water supply, enable the town's water district to continue as a reliable source of excellent quality water that complies with public health standards and meets community demands for potable water now and in the future. As we kind of treated this as the water system, but we also looked at it as a lot of people in town have their own private wells, and we need to protect those as well. So it wasn't just for the water district, but a lot of the information gathered was around what the water district provides for the people that handle it. So the goals were to protect public health, become an environmental steward, evaluate current land use and plan for future land use, address existing water quality issues, knowing what contaminants are regulated, and address emerging and unknown contaminants. So those are goals we came up with from our meetings. Some little information about the current land use in Holland. The red areas show developed and residential areas, where the green and yellow are both forested and agricultural areas. So you see much of the town is agricultural and green. So it actually bodes well for us as far as you can see the sections that are probably contributing to the source water are mostly in forested and undeveloped areas. So that helps some. However, we also found that the Route 16 corridor runs right down through there. So that's probably one of our biggest concerns, as well as the railroad line. So yeah, so what this is a map showing is some of the potential contaminant sources. And this was put together by the consulting firms as they went through, and these are different spills and bulk storage areas and businesses that may be potential sources. So as we were saying too, the two corridors are probably one of our major concerns. So this is what we came up with as far as protection and information strategies. Our highest priority was land use and development of the critical area, deciding what the threat is. Inadequate land use regulations can lead to a higher potential for pollution in the drinking water source. The goal is to mitigate the amount of contaminants seeping into the groundwater by having appropriate land use and zoning regulations. 2, unknown regional water quality. What is the threat? Unknown water quality from gaps in data about the water system poses a threat to the public. Better defining where exactly the source water is coming from will help us. Sampling water at different locations, just gathering information from homeowners and how their wells behave and such will help us better understand exactly where our regional water is coming from for the source water. Our third priority is the transportation-related contamination in the critical area. So St. Route 16 goes right straight down through chemical and physical and biological contamination from spills can contaminate the water body and affect the ecosystem. Our goal is to reduce the likelihood of spills in the corridor, reduce the amount of de-icing material used in that corridor, and to have I don't have it listed here, but to have a plan, well-developed plan if there is a spill or something that we can implement in a hurry and try to mitigate this, minimize this. So our fourth priority was to management of the regulated potential contaminant sources. These are enhanced chemical, biological, or physical contaminants from spills, leaks, or activities entering the waterway. Enhanced communication with specific facilities and DEC staff to understand the risk and respond to this effort. Potential contaminant entering the critical waters from agricultural activities. The threat being access contaminants and nutrients from the groundwater infiltrating from agricultural land. And then the goal would be to mitigate the amount of contaminants seeping into the groundwater. Herbicides and pesticides in the critical area. The threat being overland flow and infiltration from agricultural and residential lands, bringing excess chemicals into the creek and aquifer, which can contaminate soil, water, and non-target plants, as well as toxic to other organisms. And the goal would be to reduce the amount of herbicides and pesticides applied to the source water area. Lastly, would be design a management team. Role and responsibility, roles of the plan management team would the management implementing the plan, preparing an annual progress report to share with the community and the DEC and DOH. Revise the plan on a regular basis. There's just 35 years. That will probably, this team hasn't been fully formed yet, but we're looking to have its members from the town of Holland, that's the town supervisor, the engineer, and member from the Erie County Water Quality Committee, LUPA, Department of Health, the Highway Superintendent, and if possible, somebody from the Soil and Water Conservation District. So we're looking to reach out to these entities fairly quickly to form a team that probably will only meet like a couple times a year or whatever, just to make sure we're on track and make sure we're in progress, probably via Zoom. So next steps, near term, adopt the plan. We had just done that. We got the go-ahead about a month ago from the state that it was approved, and then the town of Holland just approved it, town board approved it last week. So then convene the management team, develop strategies, and then ongoing and annual progress report, and then periodic updates to the state and the DWSP. What I'm looking to get out of this is possibly put an overlay zone in the zones to have more restrictions on any businesses or activities that might go into those where we know is well defined. And then another big goal is to get a better definition on exactly the water's coming from. So get a better handle on exactly what areas we need to be concerned about. But to our advantage, we have a lot of county and agricultural land in that area feeding too. Looking ahead, the adaptive management plan, expect new challenges to arise, regulatory requirements, emerging contaminants, land use and development patterns, invasive species, impacts and changing climate. So, adaptive management is the process of refining and management strategy in response to evaluating success through data and experiences. So, we're looking to do that as we go. Okay, do we have any questions? Mark?
Yeah, I guess just a comment. I guess knowing the area, I'm glad to see that you're, you know, in identifying the areas or the potential impacts. The agricultural side of things, knowing some of the farms that are down in that neck of the woods, there are some larger farms down there, and they would fall under probably some of the concentrated animal feeding operations or CAFO rules and regulations,
Yeah.
which basically has roles and responsibilities in regards to nutrient and waste spreading. Really the 4 R's of nutrient management planning, right? Or right time, right place, right amount, and I can't remember what the 4th R is. But basically, you know, you're applying nutrients to growing crops so that it's taken up and none leaches to the groundwater, so that leaching index and stuff. So basically, these comprehensive nutrient management plans kind of account for all that. And I'm kind of interested to overlay what you guys are finding as your priority area with some of the information that we might have, because we can then feed that back into the agricultural producers in the fields that would potentially be susceptible or of greater concern to the town.
Right.
I mean, that kind of goes both ways, right? If they don't know that this area is a high priority, normally those source water assessments from the original phase was, you know, you have a well, they draw a circle around that well, and any ag area within that would contaminate the well. But now you're taking that to the next step, as to saying, all right, what's my watershed area of my aquifer that's feeding my well?
All right.
So that information goes both ways, and I'm sure they'd be interested to learn that and see how that fits into their existing plans and stuff.
Yeah, as far as what we want to accomplish from this too is just for public outreach and let them know that this is the areas we need to be concerned about, and keep that in mind when you're performing these activities, that this eventually affects the whole town's water supply. So it's not just a localized thing. So.
Right time, right place, right source, right rate.
Right rate's 2 more R's.
I know. 5-R program.
Right on.
DNMP, Comprehensive Nutrient Management Plan, is how we coined the term for many years. So the 4R program actually comes, it's more of a national push out of the Midwest that everyone's been adopting.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So you actually went out and sort of knocked on business doors to get support. Do you think that you had good support and buy-in?
Yeah, I mean, most people were pretty, some were a little suspect, especially like Mulligan Flooring is right next to Water Street, right next to the wells, So he was a little concerned about what we were doing and what's gonna come out of it, whether we're gonna put more restrictions on the businesses in the area around the wells, and that wasn't really intensive in this. We've always had the circle drawn around our well as a protection area, but that doesn't really protect the water source. So it's just obviously being fed from the moraine south and east of us. And the wells north of where we draw water from are actually artesian, which suggests that the water's coming from up high on the valley walls and feeding into it. So what is interesting is on that side is South County forest, so that works to our advantage there. Definitely something we need to be concerned about, and we are going to go out for a few businesses that are, tend to be, grandfathered in, that need to be pulled in a little bit along that corridor that, could be potential sources of contamination. So.
Yeah, you mentioned that potential overlay zone. Is that the tool you think you might use?
Yeah, I think that's where we're running, because we already have like the highway zone, the highway zoning, and the residential zoning and stuff, but that doesn't. We'll have to do some kind of overlay that would overdo all those zones. That would add that extra layer of scrutiny of any activities that come across the planning board's table. So, yeah,
But then the town is also already proactively taking, you know, trying to do, you know, with the salt, you're actively pursuing a salt storage, which is probably when you're putting contaminant sources
Yeah,
right there already, so you're already addressing one of those. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a proactive
yeah, that's already, yep.
type of deal.
And thanks to the Conservancy, we did actually acquire a big piece of property off from Vermont Street down to the railroad tracks too, that are close to the wells too, that will stay undeveloped, so that worked in our advantage as well, so we're already starting to implement some of the things that will help, so. Now, like, some things are gonna be out of our control, like how much salt they use on Route 16, that's a state highway, so it's not much we can do about that, but, well, in the town itself, we can, you know, at least make them mindful of when they need to do it and not do it, and what they're using, and how much. Keep
Well, I
them
know
track
the
of it.
state is starting to look at road salt usage, so,
Yeah.
I mean, if at any point they end up wanting to do some sort of a pilot in western New York, we can keep in mind that maybe Route 16 might be a good spot
Yeah.
to do something.
Yeah, because that's, like I said, it's right directly above our source water, so
Yeah.
that seems to be our biggest concern, will be spills along that and the railroad line.
And that's a huge one, because it is such a big travel corridor. You
Yeah.
have no idea what could be coming up and down through there.
Yeah, yeah,
So, I mean, anything from, you know, manure tanker trucks all the way to, you know,
Yeah.
gas or oils or whatever. I mean,
yeah,
it could be anything.
yeah, that land,
So
especially
having
with waste management right there,
Yeah.
in that corridor, there's constant trucks from going to waste management and up and down through there. We added, I think it was in 2019 or 18, there was a bad fire at Draper's, and actually had to bring down foam trucks from the airport, fire suppression foam, which screams PFAS and PFOS, so we had to watch for things like that as well, and making the fire department, which luckily, our town supervisor is also highly involved in that. He was the fire chief up until recently, so it helps that they're aware of it as well, and that we need to be conscious of it. So.
That's great. Did anyone online have any questions?
I had the same question as you, Joanna, about the, you know, going door to door and inviting people. It's labor intensive, but it seems like it got you a good response. That's great.
Yeah, especially with COVID, it was like, how to reach out to these people. We decided just the best way in Holland was to go door to door and say, if you're interested, this is what we're planning, and participate if you can. And Stroba Plastics, they participated, and Draper's, and so it worked out well. So one of my suggestions for when they want feedback would to, you know, maybe suggest that for people, make it more of a community thing, so they can feel like they're involved.
Yeah, personal outreach is really important, but it's so hard to do because it's very time intensive, labor intensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in the situations where you can do it cost effectively and everything, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
To get that level of outreach.
Yep.
You should pay yourself, Marty, for
Yeah, I
that
should.
time, and your wife.
Right? Yeah, it was a little slow getting the whole process going, because I wasn't sure how it worked, and, you know, so it took us a month or two to get things going, but once we got things rolling,